Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gooey's Dungeon Dive, the podcast where I, Gooey, rank all of the dungeons in The Legend of Zelda. And this week we are covering a mini dungeon in Majora's Mask, the Pirate's Fortress. This is sort of part of the quest in the lead up to the next dungeon properly within the game. The pirates within this mini dungeon have stolen the eggs of a famous Zora singer who recently laid them, causing her to lose her voice for some reason. I don't know how Zoras work, but that happened. All of this was of course encouraged by Skull Kid, telling the pirates that the eggs were a valuable key to traveling to Great Bay Temple, which is our next destination. Great Bay is of course the source of a curse over this region of Termina, which is apparently making the seawater all murky, I guess. A Zora close to Lulu, her bandmate Macau, took it upon himself to attempt to recover the eggs from the pirates, and he perished from this attempt. Now, we're able to find him floating around in the water, still holding on to life. We're able to heal his soul with the Song of Healing and gain his spirit transformation in the Zora mask. And this gives us the ability to infiltrate the Pirate's Fortress. This is a pretty unique area of the game, I think. Kind of a new theme for the series as well. It's a secret pirate base, where stealth and infiltration are the major focus. To even enter the fortress, we have to smash up like a boarded secret entrance below the area. In this beginning portion of the dungeon, there's some pirates like patrolling on their boats, protecting the entrance. Getting spotted here means getting thrown out of the fortress, but being sneaky enough, we can open up a secret passageway that leads even deeper into their hideout. This secret path has a series of puzzles and obstacles that we need to overcome to go further. There's sort of some security in place in this route, as there are like spike mines all along the water, timed gates and things like that. Clearly, we were not meant to come through here. This is a linear area, kind of series of puzzles and challenges, but it brings us to this inner area of the compound, which is sort of in a way comparable to the Gerudo Fortress in Ocarina of Time. There's armed guards that patrol the area, and they'll throw you out if spotted, and they gotta be like stunned from afar by shooting them to safely navigate around. Or there's another option, especially in the 3DS remake of the game. There's this strange Clocktown guard named Shiro sitting right in the middle of the fortress, and he is apparently so plain and unnoticeable that he's also invisible, I guess? I don't know, but we can spot him with the Lens of Truth. In exchange for some potion to revitalize his energy, he gives us the Stone Mask, which makes us undetectable by most of the pirate guards. This makes the area a whole lot easier to complete. It also makes snapping pictures of the pirates a lot easier. There's a reason for doing this, I swear. Some people didn't really like adding the character to this area of the game where you'd more likely encounter him later, but it's okay with me. It's still unlikely the first time player will have the potion he wants. It makes replaying the game a little bit better because, I don't know, the stealth sections aren't that great in Zelda anyway. Though, here they're not bad. They're not too bad. From here, we need to collect the rest of the Zora eggs. A lot of the area is still inaccessible. We have to make our way up the tower and go into this room that's sort of overlooking the hall of the pirate leader. And here we can listen in on their discussion, hear them talk about their plans involving the fish eggs, but also how they lost some of them to the sea snakes that live within Pinnacle Rock. We can get rid of them by shooting a beehive that's above the room and causing them to get chased out of the room by bees, which is a pretty fun scene. And from here, we're able to obtain the hookshot of a fisherman who lives on the Great Bay Coast. So, sort of a dungeon item here, I guess, if you want to, some people argue over what even makes a mini dungeon. I don't know, but whatever, we got an item. And this opens up the rest of the area that we need to navigate around using the hookshot to obtain the rest of the Zora eggs. And they're guarded by these pirate warriors who we have to engage in one-on-one sword combat with. And the fight is a lot like the Gerudo guard fights in Ocarina of Time. Depending on whether you have an upgraded sword or not, this fight can actually get pretty easy. At this point, I just kind of mash my way through them, but they're a cool, it's a cool moment at least, So all these eggs guarded by these Gerudo mini boss fights, I guess you could say. So due to the nature of the eggs getting stolen by the eels, I guess. They stole from the thieves themselves, or at least they lost the eggs to them. The mini dungeon is somewhat incomplete feeling, I guess, but you know, it's a mini dungeon, I suppose. To actually complete the mission we're on, which I don't know if this even applies to the mini dungeon anymore, but we have to go from here to the Great Bay Coast to meet the aforementioned fisherman, and he will give us a seahorse that can lead the way to Pinnacle Rock in exchange for a photo of one of these pirates. See, he's the weird one. From here, the seahorse leads the way to Pinnacle Rock, we battle the eels, and gain the rest of the eggs. When they all hatch, they teach us the notes to the new wave bossa nova, which is meant to invigorate singing voices. Tying it back into Lulu, of course. And that's our final key to traveling to Great Bay Temple. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves. That's the next, episode. So let's get to ranking this thing. Yeah, it's getting interesting to think about the mini dungeons, or like what even constitutes a mini dungeon. This feels like a more expanded version of Gerudo Fortress or Gerudo Hideout or whatever it's called in Ocarina of Time. But there's a little bit more to it than that, but yeah, I know, no matter what, there's always going to be some area that people will be like, why didn't you include this? Why didn't you include this? Like, for example, I'm skipping over the spider houses, and that's because I just kind of view them as sort of they're like a step up, but they're somewhere between mini game and mini dungeon. It's sort of like it's sort of like Canalit Castle, where it's the single area where you're kind of just collecting a bunch of one thing. The definition of dungeon is certainly weird sometimes, and the definition of mini dungeon is even more difficult. But I'm going to include this one because unlike, I don't know, this one, there's like a beginning and a middle, maybe not an end. There's not like a boss necessarily. Unless you want to count and think of that encounter at Pinnacle Rock as sort of like a boss encounter, but I don't know. Even without that, I think there's something to it. Whereas the things like the spider houses are these own kind of unique areas with a collectible mini game, but I don't really think of those as like mini dungeons. So they're close. And if you want to include them on your own lists, and if you want to include Canalit Castle on your list, stuff like that, the egg in Link's Awakening, by all means, do it. But, for the sake of this series, I'm not going to talk about every single little indoor area that could be conceived of as a dungeon, Is sneaking through the castle courtyard in Ocarina of Time a dungeon? A mini dungeon, at least? I don't know. But anyway, we will talk about this, because I do like this. I like this vibe. I forgot to mention the music. The music here is really cool. It's got like that pirate dum 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 dum. Yeah. Just a cool vibe. And we'll see. I will see this come back in Wind Waker with the Forsaken Fortress. I think that's this feels like a precursor to that in a lot of ways. And yeah, I like it. There are different facets to this area. I sort of walk through it because it's sort of linear, but I like how you have the sneaking in portion of them patrolling around and then, sneaking in their secret passage, and then the second area where it's like this big wide open area that you have to sort of stealth through, and even then it's like still an area that's closed off, and you have to get what is essentially a dungeon item to like open up the rest of the dungeon, and it's like getting these three things in any particular order. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's actually pretty cool. It makes for a pretty interesting area. It's hard to come up with a ranking for it, I guess. I think it's more interesting even than like the Ice Cavern in Ocarina of Time, which has it does feel a bit more like a traditional dungeon in miniature. The Ice Cavern does, but I just sort of like how this one sort of unfolds and how it ties into the story in kind of a cool way. So I'm at least committed to putting it above that. it's hard to go it's hard to go much further than that. Like, thinking about like Ocarina of Time, kind of a comparable game, like I don't know, it's kind of interesting compared, like I kind of find it a cooler execution of the concept than like the Shadow Temple, but it's still a lot more in miniature, so I don't know how much, honestly I don't really know how much higher I can actually go. I guess I went really high with Bottom of the Well. But this, you know, that one actually, I feel like gameplay wise, it kind of brought something sort of new. But whereas this is like, I don't know, it's kind of the stealth and all that kind of stuff. It's nothing too new. And honestly, I cheesed through it with the Stone Mask. And I'm kind of mixed on doing the stealth anyway. But it's fine in this. If you get caught, you're just thrown right out, and getting back into it is fine. Yeah, it makes, again, what is a mini dungeon? I'll kind of let you guys leave a comment on what you think even your definition of a mini dungeon is. To me, I guess it has to have more than one part to it. It can't just be like one puzzle or like find one collectible, you know. This has like the collectible, but it also has sort of a intro part to it too. You know, like could Deku Palace, certainly in the original version of Majora's Mask, Deku Palace almost could be, because you have to like sneak through one area, then you have to plant the bean from the outside and go above the area. You could maybe consider that a mini dungeon, but anyway, not gonna get into it too much here. I can go above the ice cavern at least, but you know, and it's cool for what it is, but I can't actually like think of it as much higher. Maybe somewhere between Ice Cavern and Shadow Temple would be good. I don't know where though. Maybe right above Island Palace would be good. It's kind of another cool thematic area, with it's got some varying locations, but it's a bit of a pain in the butt. But below the demon, just that's kind of a cool thing going on with it. Yeah, let's say right in there. So it's pretty good mini dungeon. Yeah, that's definitely good. I'm more impressed with it than maybe like the Shadow Temple, if that makes sense. But it's hard to compare the two. So anyway, that's where I'm gonna go. Sorry if you wanted the spider houses to be covered, but you know, they're cool. My review is they're cool. Anyway, we're gonna get into Great Bay now, finally, properly, with the next dungeon. We can get right into it too, because I kind of set up the whole lead up to it in the previous in this video. So we're just gonna, you know, we'll get a little introduction and just hop right in, talk about Great Bay. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next week.